You're listening to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, where each week we have a conversation with everyday martial arts practitioners. From the first motivation to train, martial arts enriches our lives and becomes a lifestyle. Welcome to the individual stories of those martial artists living that lifestyle. You are listening to the abbreviated version. For those of you checking this out on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Full-length versions of this podcast can be subscribed to at our Patreon page, is www.patreon.com/malmag. Or individual full-length episodes can be purchased at our Gumroad page at malmag.gumroad.com. Before we begin this week's program, I would like to remind you to check out martialartslifestylemagazine.com to see articles on the martial arts. Click on the Store tab to find products for the practice of Southeast Asian martial arts, featuring Timmy B's brand sticks. Check out the Courses tab, currently featuring a course on the Dos Manos method of the Filipino martial arts. Also check out our Places to Train page, featuring top quality martial art academies from around the world. And of course, check out our events page for seminars and events coming up around the world. To see your school listed in our Places to Train page or your event on our events calendar, contact us at malmagonline@gmail.com. This week, I get on Zoom and I talk with Sabrina Bershad for the second time. We talk about what she's been up to lately. She's got her master's degree in sports psychology, so not only is she still coaching martial arts and fencing, but working with fighters and performers on the mental aspect. When we talk about interesting things like that freeze moment that a lot of performers and fighters are concerned about, and much more. Join us for this interesting conversation. Welcome to the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast, and I think if you've been listening, you've noticed I've been doing a little, reconnecting with some folks that have been on earlier, and I had a really great experience actually finally getting to meet this next guest, which was a previous guest, in person over this last weekend before I recorded anyway. So you guys probably remember Sabrina Bershad, who was on the show, I want to say maybe season 1 or season 2, I forget. But anyway, you guys remember, she's a fantastic fencing coach. She's got a great background in Kalis Illustrisimo. And what we're going to talk about today a bit is you got an education. You recently got a degree in this.
Yes.
Sports psychology, basically, yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So as she and I were talking over this last weekend about quite a few things. One, I'm trying to encourage this young lady to make sure she still teaches and coaches martial arts because I think she's a great coach. But she was telling me a bit about this, and I think this is such an interesting topic that I'm glad that we can hop on here and talk about it because you've got some exciting things going on with it. And at the same time, I think if we think about what we call like triangles. I named my organization Doble Dos Tatsuluk, which just means 22 triangles or double two triangles. So in the spirit, this sort of thing, and they fill in. So mind, body, spirit being one of them, we don't really work with the mind much other than in this like real basic way. And you're kind of getting into that in depth now. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up triangles because that's kind of how I see it a little bit when it comes to the mental side of performance. And when I say performance, I mean like whether you're sparring or have an interview or trying to keep your house from falling down around your ears. These are all performances. And oftentimes there's a reality of what's happening, and then there's the way we perceive it, and
right.
That affects it affects our next action. So when I'm working with athletes, we're working on kind of shifting that mentality to seeing what is the reality and how can I perform my best in this situation, and even change my perspective or how I perceive things in general.
Exactly. Okay, that's awesome. So what do you feel people coming to you, and even just your observation out there in general of, say, martial artists, or just, as you're saying, people in general, this could be for actors or even just normal people, right? What are the big roadblocks that we're hitting
Well, it's interesting. There seem to be a few different roadblocks. If I'm working, one is like life. There are little things that are affecting people's performances because things in their life are feeling chaotic. And I see this a lot in combat sports. My pro MMA fighters, they might be dangerous in the cage, but their performance is being affected by, their personal lives and the chaos that's surrounding that. So one roadblock, and it's something that stops being a roadblock once we start working on it, but is just stress reduction and life management. And then another one could be, another roadblock that I often see is during performance is freezing. And freezing is partly psychological, but it turns physiological. So I've had singers and actors and also combat sport athletes that in the moment where they should act, suddenly either with a singer, their vocal cords could even seize up and they miss that note, or an athlete misses that split-second opportunity that they knew they had to take a movement and they just, like, their body just didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So these are things that are under the jurisdiction of mental performance that we work on and we can enhance so that we can smooth it out.
The funny thing is, I think that freeze is the thing that most humans, when you talk to them, are afraid of. It's like we have nightmares of that freeze, right? I mean, how many times have you had nightmares like, I couldn't throw the punch, or I couldn't throw the kick, or I couldn't pull the trigger of the gun? And these are all in your, in your dreams, whatever. And it's a nightmare. It's terrifying.
Yes, and it goes back to that, and that it almost perpetuates. Occasionally, it can even perpetuate that result. Not always. Sometimes it's just our performance anxiety ahead of time. But occasionally, if this is something that we're regularly worrying about, it can kind of become our reality. And that's where I come in, where I can kind of, we can work together to explore what the actual fear is and work through it. And also have a lot of, kind of like your martial arts practice, these are mental performance skills that you can actually practice and reestablish new patterns through practice and really improve.
Wow. And so now that you have an education in this, I mean, I think this is like sort of modern cutting edge stuff, I think, as far as our acceptance of it, right? Where if you get someone who's, dare I say, old like me, in your mid 50s, you're coming potentially from generations before you that people say, oh, that's frou-frou, and that's, what is it, mystic, or it's hippy-dippy or whatever. But there's some actual science behind this, right?
Absolutely. Actually, I think the first mental performance coach or sports psychology has been going on since, in the 1800s, like the late 1800s. And then there was actually, during World War II, a woman, Dorothy Yates, who worked with boxers, who ended up working with fighter pilots on this stuff. And so it's been going on for a while, but yeah, it's taken a long time for people to accept. And occasionally I'll still get that with my fighters. They'll be like, well, I don't want therapy. And it's like, well, first of all, this isn't therapy. Second of all, it's like everyone could benefit from exploring what's in their minds, So there is a big distinction between what I do and what a therapist does in general. But yeah, there's a lot of pushback still. It's interesting.
And I think that's a good distinction that you're making, that this isn't therapy. Now, it might have some crossover, obviously.
Yeah.
But you're not like taking a deep dive into, you were abused as a child or something. No, I suppose that could come out, but that's not really what you're doing, right? You're kind of looking at, God, who's that fella? Robbins. He does it with the NLP. So is it kind of, things like that, like programming the mind to get out of patterns?
Yes, that's a big part of it. it's really, a lot. You'll hear people say like this game is 90% mental, or something like that. And really it's giving you drills, it's training the mental skills. I even categorize them into defensive and offensive mental skills. It's training them like you train your body, so that when you step into whatever role you need to step into, you're ready, you're there, you're fully present there. So yeah, it's really important. And sometimes you'll find, there's a lot of trauma in especially in combat sports, in the pros. They did suffer. Many people do suffer a lot of abuse, unfortunately. That's our reality in the world. There's so many tough situations that people are coming out of. And we do look at that a little bit. And one thing that I'm careful to do is find extra support when it's needed. And I'll work alongside that so that people are really benefiting, not just in their performance, but in their life.
Right. Yeah. Because I mean, it's all connected, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's really funny how you use that saying, it's 90% mental, and you go, right, I've heard that forever in this. And it's funny how we've said that all the time, but we've not really acknowledged what that meant when we said it. Like, yeah, okay, it means that this is important. And it seems like back in the day, again, being an older person, it always seemed to be this whole idea of, well, get over it. Well, thanks. That I'm glad that you could say, 2-3 words. They're not magical. It's not abracadabra. It's done.
Right.
Thanks. But how?
And can you imagine if someone said that to physical stuff? Like, it's like, well, this kick isn't really landing. It's like, oh, well, get over it. Just keep doing it without any kind of instruction.
Slam dunk. Well, get over it.
Yeah. It's like without any kind of instruction on how to improve it.
That's funny. But it's true. It's like, I think of, because, as a young man, I tried all kinds of sports before I landed on martial arts. So, I did baseball and basketball and football. And, as you would expect, the training and coaching techniques of the era of the 70s and the 80s was, like it's depicted in movies for the most part. Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of militaristic, but I mean, not quite. It wasn't like Sergeant Hartman and Full Metal Jacket, but I mean, the coaches were pretty domineering. It was pretty hard on you kind of thing. Not a lot of sympathetic. And not that I'm saying, things need to be kumbaya exactly, but at the same time, I think you need to understand what your athlete, especially when your athletes are kids, for God's sake, what's happening there. But it is a lot of, well, suck it up and this kind of thing. And it's like, all right, well, fine. If you're looking to make someone just straight out aggressive, maybe that works, but aggression isn't always what allows victory in a performance.
Absolutely. And I see that sometimes where, especially anger, poor emotional regulation can really affect focus big time, and actually do the opposite and cause a loss right there on the spot. You get overly you overthrow something, you get angry, you start making very big swinging brutish actions, and your opponent easily gets around it, and that could have been worked on. That situation could have been avoided. Exactly. With some mental training.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I just start running in my mind. I run the card catalog because I'm old. The card catalog of good laugh. I like it. Okay, good. The joke went well. The card catalog of just different athletes I can remember through time in different sports, that this, now thinking back about it, was pretty obvious that these issues in there. And one of the first one that comes to mind is Mike Tyson, who's an incredibly talented boxer, who in the beginning, I think his people that were around him were really good at probably maintaining the balance between the sort of maybe anger, fear, rage he had, and being able to channel that into focus, and turned him into this amazing fighter. And then when he lost that crew, then it got out of control. And, and then we saw, unfortunately, how sort of his career went after that point. And now, as a guy who is fortunately still alive, he's an individual I thought when I was younger probably wouldn't live to be as old as I am, but he is. He's a very interesting guy to listen to now about stuff. And so, yeah, I think of athletes like that, or most recently, the gymnast Simone Biles, right? She was in the Olympics and literally said, "Look, I'm not in the right space to do this very dangerous thing." So she was off a few days during the Olympics, and then they brought her back, and she was able to perform again. And people gave her a lot of shit for that.
Yeah, it's because this suck it up mentality has been, as you said, it's like pervasive in the culture. And it's misguided, because mental toughness is something that in my profession we focus on a lot. And none of it really boils down to suck it up. It
Exactly.
we break it down to 4 components, which would be confidence, control, commitment, and what's the fourth one? I don't remember. I'll think of it in a second. But these are the components that really make mental toughness.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things can be worked on. Like if you feel like everything is out of your control and you have no autonomy, it's going to be hard to suck it up. There isn't really, you feel like you're not even performing for yourself anymore, which won't really elicit great results. And same thing, if your confidence is tanking, and again, autonomy is they're all interconnected. So all of these things can be improved. You can improve your confidence and even commitment. There are ways to become committed to something. Mm-hmm. And that's actually one of my specialties. But any of this stuff can be worked on, and none of it involves sucking it up.
Right. Exactly. Because that's the mental version of just sweeping some dust under the rug, essentially. Yeah. The dirt isn't gone. It's still there. It's just out of sight. And out of sight, out of mind doesn't exactly work in this context, because it's obviously still in mind, right?
Yeah. Oh, the fourth C, challenge. Yeah, being able to rise to challenges takes practice. So, yes, continue.
Yeah. No, and that's a great. You and I were actually talking about an example of this when we were having lunch the other day, which is Ronda Rousey. An extremely talented fighter. Oh my God, really came on the scene. I mean, she was killing him, and everyone was, amazed. And then what it looks like is almost like the sport surpassed her in her own time. And I don't necessarily think that's the case. That's what it looks like. But, we saw where her defeat to Holly, they came in there with a very good strategy and they won. And she got, in my opinion, and I have no background to have a professional opinion other than I care about people and I care about what they get pushed into. But, you have more with professional background on this, but I think she was pushed into that comeback fight before she was anywhere ready, because it just,
oh yeah. From a mental performance perspective, Ronda Rousey's case is a bit heartbreaking, and it's very clear that loss was not something that she was supported in learning how to handle. And that can be, especially in the public eye, that can be devastating. Absolutely. And she was not taught to handle that. And she had very limited support in coming back from that. And I think, and people talk about this all the time, like your coaching staff and the people that you surround yourself with, that is critical. Also, having that connection is so important for motivation. It's so important for confidence. And I think a lot of people really let her down. And she was meant to face something very difficult that she didn't have much experience with alone, and that is loss. And yeah, part of mental toughness is training that, because, losses are inevitable. But yeah, I think that she's kind of a little bit of a heartbreaking, like a heartbreaking figure.
Yeah. Yeah. I bring her up because she's back in the public now. Apparently she's going at it with Joe Rogan over something. I don't know, but I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, there are probably better uses of your time, Miss Rousey, I think, than battling with him. You've got a lot of talent, and I think it can be applied in a lot of ways. There's probably a lot of people that would benefit greatly from you as a coach, I guess. But yeah, the current atmosphere, and I think what we're talking about with her is not uncommon, unfortunately, with this drive to be perfect, to win, and then this weird thing we have now where everyone reverts to this 8-year-old mentality of like, oh, you lost, you're a loser, and I'm like,
Yeah.
why are we doing this to other adults? Like, seriously, why are we doing this to adults? I understand why children do it, and we teach them not to do it because it's not cool. Their brains are developing. As adults, our brains should have developed past that at this point, and I don't really get that. Other than it's just a pure greed economical thing where you're like, okay, well, we need quote unquote winners. And the moment someone loses or is losing, you think, oh, that's going to be an economic dip. So now you're ready to just cast this person off into the trash while you go on to the next thing. But yet at the same time, we love the underdog story. So we want that person to potentially come back, but we don't want to give them any environment to do that in.
Well, it actually, some of that, there will always be the noise. And this is something I especially have to work on with my pro fighters, is there will always be the external noise. And really what makes or breaks it is the individual's ability to move past that and rise to, that becomes their next challenge, is rising past that loss, rising past the noise, and becoming that next underdog story. And it takes a lot of confidence, a lot of work sometimes, because our minds themselves are already telling us that. We don't even need to, a lot of these guys, they don't need to hear it from the outside world. Right. They already are,
worst enemies, right?
Yeah. And so really focusing on self-talk and fixing your relationship with yourself as a performer goes a long way to, becoming that underdog, that winner that was the underdog. So
interesting. So here's another one I have for you. It'll be interesting to get your opinion on. So we'll step away from pros and we'll go to just normal people. And I've had plenty of conversations, and every single one I've had this conversation with will now know that I'm talking about them, but no names, because I'm guilty of it myself. So, and I think a lot of people are. Imposter syndrome.
Imposter syndrome. That happens to us all, it seems. Like if we have standards, we have imposter syndrome.
Right. There you go.
At some point. And one of the biggest techniques that I give for imposter syndrome is it's a little bit like reverse psychology, is to know that for sure
And this concludes the abbreviated version of the podcast. Please consider supporting the program by going to www.patreon.com/MALMAG and subscribing to the show. You can also purchase this individual episode or any individual episode at our Gumroad page. That's malmag.gumroad.com. Thank you for listening to this episode with Sabrina Bershad. Coming up next week, I finally get my friend Robert Messon on the show. Our Malmag online store at martialartslifestylemagazine.com has a full selection of Timmy B's brand sticks for FMA and Krabi Kerbang. Timmy B's brand now selling in Japan as well. Beautiful Timmy B's brand shirts and Dos Manos shirts are available. We also have sarongs, malongs, and wooden training knives. An online course in the Dos Manos method for FMA is available under the Courses tab. More courses coming soon. Check out the Places to Train tab to find schools near you, and click on the Events Calendar page to see what seminars and events are happening all around the world. And of course, visit our main page for articles on the martial arts. Music by Arthur J. Martial Arts Lifestyle Magazine and the Martial Arts Lifestyle Podcast are trademarked and copyrighted by TNT LLC.